In this next video, I'm going to show you how you can create this awesome chart that updates automatically by using just some simple dynamic array formulae. Let's get straight into it. So we have a range here, which is brand, region, and sales. And I want to create a dynamic chart where what I want to do is I want to have just a list of the brands, and then I can filter and just see the region sales for each of the brands. So the first step I'm going to do is just take this particular range and turn this into a data table. So I'm going to Control and T. That will then bring up this dialog box. I just need to OK to this, and then you'll see that the formatting has changed and it becomes a data table. Now the benefits of data tables are that they're dynamic, so if I add an extra row, it'll be included in any calculation. I'm just going to change the formatting on this one because I like this formatting a little bit better. And the first step to creating my dynamic chart is I'm going to include the filter function. So if I equals filter, open my parentheses, my first argument within my filter is the array. So the array effectively means what data do I want to pull back from the filter function. So in this instance, I want a chart which includes region and sales. So I'm just going to select those two columns, comma to that. My next argument is what am I going to include? So this effectively is just the filter. What am I going to filter for? So in this instance, I want to filter to say, well, I just want to select a particular brand. And the filter that I'm going to use is I'm just going to enter that into a blank cell for the moment. So just in cell F1. And what we'll do is we'll enter something into F1 in a few minutes that will help us filter out what we want to see. So if I comment to that, my last argument in the filter function is if empty, which effectively is error handling. So if it doesn't find anything, just say not found, and then close my parentheses and hit return. And that instantly just comes back with a not found. But what we need to do is just go up to cell F1, and if I enter in one of my brands and hit return, you can see then it will just pull the sales for Nike across each of the regions. Now the first thing you'll notice is that it doesn't pull across the formatting, so let's just go across to the left and grab that, and we're just going to extend it down along here. And you see the way the filter function works, because it's a dynamic array, it spills over. So this is the first cell where I have my formula. But if you can see, the formula isn't all of these cells where it's pulling down the extra information we need, but it's kind of grayed out. So if I enter in another one of my brands and hit return, we can see then it's only pulling back the two regions where we have sales for Puma. So it's dynamic. In Adidas we had 4, and in Puma we only have 2 regions. So the next step I want to do is, instead of typing in my brand into cell F1, I want to put in some data validation. So I could reference just the list or type them into data validation. So if I go data validation and then data validation, change that to a list, I can reference my list of regions anywhere within the spreadsheet, or I can physically type them in here if I wanted and just separate them out by a comma. But that's a bit slow. And what I want this to do is I want this to be dynamic. So what I'm going to do, over to the side here, I'm just going to create another dynamic array formula, which is going to be equals unique. The unique formula effectively just pulls back unique instances of particular characters. So if I go across to the left here and I just select my column of my table, which is brand, and then close my parentheses and hit return, it will only return the one instance of each of the brands. So you can see, even though Adidas is here 4 times, it only pulls it back here once. So that looks good. Now to help when I'm pulling my data validation list, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort this alphabetically, because if I had several hundred items in my list, it will just help users if they're sorted alphabetically. So I can wrap a sort function around unique. So the way the sort function works is, first argument is the array, which effectively is just our unique function. Comment to that. My sort index, well, because I've only got one column, I don't need to enter in that. But if I had several columns, I could just specify which column I want to sort by. My next argument is, how do I want to sort it? Do I want it ascending or descending? So in this instance, I want it ascending. And then my final argument is, do I want it by column or by row? Well, by default, it's by row. So I'm just going to close the parentheses at that stage and hit return. And you can see then my data validation list is now sorted alphabetically. So what I can do now is if I go back into cell F1, if I go to my data and data validation, this time I want a list. I'm just going to move that down slightly, and the source of my list is just going to be the unique and sort function that I put in just a second ago. So if I select that cell, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a hashtag at the end, and that will effectively make sure that it includes anything within the spill, so all of these brands below Adidas. So if I just hit OK to that, and then you can see I've got my full list of my brands here, and they're sorted alphabetically. So if I select Adidas to that, you can see then it's pulling through all of my Adidas sales for each of the regions. If I look at Puma for that, then you can see it's only pulling through 2 regions that relate to Puma. So if I go back to Adidas then, and now I'm just going to enter in my chart. So if I insert, I'm just going to put in a simple column chart. So let's just clean up the formatting. Don't want these grid lines. Let's take them away. I actually don't want this axis here, so let's delete that. And then on my chart title, I want something dynamic there. So what I'm going to do over to the right here is just enter in a very simple formula, which is equals, put in my quotation marks because I'm using text, and I want to say region sales for just a dash, and then just close my quotation marks. I'm going to use an ampersand, and I'm just going to basically bring in my brand there, and then I'm just going to hit return, and you can see then if I change my brand, that should pull that through nicely. Now I want to link this chart title to that, so if I just go anywhere in my chart title up to my formula bar and just hit equals, and then I'm just going to reference this cell here that has my formula and hit return, and you can see that brings it through to the chart. So if I change this chart again back to Adidas, yep, that works nice. Now the final thing I'm going to do is I want to make sure that I always have the highest sales here on the left. So to do that, I'm just going to wrap this filter around a sort. My array is the output of my filter. So if I comment to that, my sort index, I'm going to sort by sales. So that's actually the second column. My sort order, I want that actually to be descending. So I'm going to go -1, and then I'm going to close my parentheses and hit return. And you can see then that should be sorting the highest down to the lowest. So if I just check that with one of the others, yep, that seems to be working well. The final few steps are just changing some formatting on the charts. So if I select my bar charts, right mouse click, and I just want to add some data labels to that. I'm going to select those, right mouse click again, and then I'm just going to format my data labels. I want those inside the end, and I want those in white as well. And then finally, I'm just going to format the number, make them look a little bit easier to read. So if I go to number on that, again, I want to take out my decimal places, add a comma to bring it back to thousands. I want to add a US dollars to the front, and then I just want to have K to donate thousands to the end of that, and then add that, and that's starting to look pretty good. Just going to make that a slight bit bigger. Yeah, that looks good. Continue watching this playlist up here, where I'll take you through a variety of different videos that will talk you through all different types of Excel charts, or this video down here where I can talk you through my top 10 Excel tips.